Republican lead in the U.S. House is literally evaporating. Man, it's almost gone. Benjamin Ayanian, he's with Young Voices, a conservative group. Ben, they're quitting on us right before we get to the finish line election day. What's going on? What's this mindset on some of these Republicans? Not just announcing their retirement, but they're actually quitting before we reach the finish line. That's just so pathetic.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of turmoil right now in Congress within the Republican Party with, all of these members stepping down early. Particularly Gallagher has gotten a lot of flack for leaving and setting his planned date after the date that would require a special election in Wisconsin, which would allow, Republicans theoretically to replace him before, the upcoming elections. So it is creating a lot of controversy within the Republican Party.
Somebody got some pictures on Mike Gallagher. I mean, why is he throwing a monkey wrench into the leadership process and the leadership retention up in Washington? Are you hearing anything?
Yeah, well, we can only speculate as to why exactly he picked his particular date for when he would be leaving Congress. But certainly this is going to create a lot of problems for Republicans. As you mentioned, their majority is shrinking rapidly with individuals leaving. I think a lot of the infighting, I think, is just becoming exhausting for some individuals. Now, the infighting, it holds value. For example, wanting to actually be able to read legislation that you're going to vote on is a very fair request from Republican politicians. So I think with the infighting in terms of, the battles over who the speaker should be, with President Trump coming up as the nominee for the Republican Party with this election approaching, there's going to be a media frenzy asking these politicians questions nonstop about the latest breath or statements that Donald Trump made. And I think that some of these guys are just exhausted and they're bowing out early.
Well, the conservative group, Young Voices, Benjamin Ayanian is my guest, and we're talking about the decreasing numbers for the Republicans. I think their leadership number is just like one. They hold the majority, I think, like by one, maybe two seats up in Washington. Mike Gallagher, this congressman, calling it quits at the worst time possible. He's leaving before his term ends. They can't do a special election to replace him before November. Lord help us, none of these Republicans die. Otherwise, the Democrats take over the U.S. House. And Mike Gallagher, by the way, Ben, Mike Gallagher, he was tip of the spear in doing this Chinese Communist Party committee that the Republicans had up in Washington. And I think he was one of the lead congressmen, if not the lead congressman, when it came to trying to sink TikTok, get rid of TikTok in this country. Man, I really wish somebody would ask him, hey, did somebody threaten you to leave like now? Because he was like, Mr. Get rid of TikTok up in Washington, D.C. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, you never know, what goes on in back rooms in some of these discussions. The bill to ban TikTok has been front and center in a lot of minds, especially in this country, not just in the Republican Party. Over the last couple of weeks, he definitely was a loud voice involved in that movement. That bill, it's kind of a double-edged sword. There's concerns about TikTok and the information that's being presented on it, but at the same time, the United States doesn't want to be the country that bans social media apps and restricts speech. And so you never know who felt crossed, who felt upset by these sorts of movements. I think that we can only speculate on that.
And leadership for the Republicans right now, I don't think we should be happy with them. I'm not happy with Mike, the big Johnson, which just big old mess that he created, passing this $1 trillion plus spending measure. Just yet another example of deficit spending, really to cover the multi-million-dollar interest rate payment on all this national debt that we have right now. It's getting more expensive with interest rates the way they are right now, and all these crazy things that they're spending on. Mike Johnson, he, excuse the cynicism, but I mean, Kev McCarthy, I don't think could have been accused of being worse when it came to negotiating some of these spending measures and excusing some of these things that they're spending money on up in D.C. Or is it fair in an election year to want him, to want that he be removed as leader, as a Speaker of the House right now, because that would just create all sorts of political turmoil and chaos against the conservatives and Republicans in D.C. if you oust them like right now.
I think Republicans need to stick to their guns, the ones who, want to run government in a principled manner, who want to actually read the bills that they're voting on, that want to be able to debate the actual spending measures in some of these bills. I mean, if you read through the spending bill that was just passed in haste, under Speaker Mike Johnson, there's a lot of goodies in there that I think there could have been a lot of healthy debate about had individuals had a chance really to undertake that process. But unfortunately, even Speaker Mike Johnson was not able to really stick to his promise to give everyone 72 hours to read bills of this measure. And I think rightfully so, that's created a lot of uproar within the Republican Party. I think as Americans, we should demand that the people who are representing us actually know what they're voting on before they do it. Whether or not Republicans should move to remove Mike Johnson, that is a loaded political question. It could create the image of chaos, but at the same time, Republicans who promised that they would be able to read these bills now, that healthy debate would now become a part of the governing process. I believe that they owe it to Americans to stick to those guns and work with either Mike Johnson or somebody else to make sure that happens, whether that is putting pressure on him, in terms of his speakership, or, whether that is just negotiating with him on other measures to get him to really stick to these rules, I think is really important.
I don't know how, but somehow, someday, we need to break this cycle that we're in. We as a nation, we cannot survive. All this deficit spending year after year after year, CR after CR, trillions upon trillions of dollars. We can't. This is unsustainable. I don't see the solution, but I hope and pray it's somewhere down the road in the near future. Ben, thank you for your time. With the conservative group Young Voices, Benjamin Ayanian.